we've heard about some interesting projects on a macro level. I'm going to talk on a micro level, really, and introduce you to two people in the next 10 minutes. The local multi-platform reporter. So this is Alison, who is reporting locally for the BBC, and all of her stories she reports across the three platforms, TV, radio and online. And I want to introduce you to somebody who I call Radio Kate, who is a self-confessed radio geek and social media type. You can find her on Twitter at Radio Kate. And Kate thinks of social media as being the fifth platform now. So we have print, TV, radio, online, and social media as the fifth platform. So I'm going to talk about some of the skills and the talents that these two people have in their roles. Here is Alison, looking quite coy there in that photograph. This is her career background on the left. As you can see, started in newspapers, joined the BBC to work on CFAX, text-based information service on the TV, moved across to online, felt she wanted to develop her skills, did some video journalism training, did some TV production work at BBC London, the local BBC service in the capital. Then, not content with online and TV training, went over to radio at BBC London and learnt skills there. Most recently, she's been fulfilling this role as a tri-media broadcast journalist at the BBC in the north of England, the northeast of England, in fact. So, you know, very local reporting, and has just returned to BBC London. So this is the sort of thing that Alison does as a tri-media reporter. This is a pretty standard local story, a big festival in the northeast of England. You can probably see a name at the byline at the top. So Alison wrote this piece for online, took the photos. At the top there on the right, you can see the little speaker icon. If you were to click on that, we haven't got time, but if you were, you would hear her on the local radio station talking to the presenter about the festival. And then if we click here, at the bottom, you'll be able to watch online the piece that Alison made for the local TV news. So Alison every day is out in the field reporting for TV, radio and online. So I met up with her. I thought she'd be an interesting case study. I wanted to introduce her to you. And I said, you know, we're talking about the talents needed to go from radio to multi-platform. And I said, what's the most transferable talent, do you think? And she said, without hesitation, storytelling. And I don't know, sometimes I think maybe we forget about the importance, the critical importance of this when we're thinking about multi-platform working. Obviously, there are huge technical issues, but what about the storytelling? And for Alison, she started telling stories in the newspapers. And yes, there's different conventions as she moves from media to media. But for her, the storytelling was the important transferable skill and the talent which she feels she's improved as she's moved from media to where she is now. Of course, we've got the technical skills. Alison told me this is where she got the bulk of her formal training, learning how to use a radio tape machine, learning about how a video camera works. So as we continued our conversation, I asked her, okay, if you got the bulk of your training to go multi-platform in technical skills, where were the gaps? What are the things that you wish you would have been taught? And this is what she told me.
Planning, your preparation, your little things like how to take care of yourself when you're out and about, taking sandwiches and water. And I know that sounds like a really sort of basic thing, but it's little things about how to be in charge of what's going on. You know, thinking about lone working and where you are. I've worked in London and Cumbria, two hugely different patches. There's different safety issues when you're in London.
I think what, for me, the most important thing she says there is being in charge of a situation. Yes. So what are we talking about there? We're talking about somebody who's out in the field on her own, able to make decisions under pressure with 3, maybe more different deadlines, somebody who feels capable to take initiative from time to time. Possibly some of the things that we associate maybe with news editor training or management training. So I thought that was all quite interesting. And I followed on by asking what's the biggest challenge then? When you're filing tri-media, what's the biggest challenge? And this is what she said.
As a multi-platform worker, I think what you're trying to do is you are the source of the story, you are the person who's there, you've got the story. So then it's in terms of time, I find, is my biggest challenge. Time is what I'm up against constantly. So I think I think all managers should maybe spend a day with a VJ or a multi-platform worker just to see what they're up against. They're gathering for 3 mediums, so it's you're busy, is I suppose is the only way of saying it, you know.
She feels so passionate about that, doesn't she? You can tell. Now, Alison says that she and her managers, as well as learning the opportunities that a tri-media reporter can bring, they've also learned the limitations, that it will be difficult for her to provide a piece for radio on a very different angle on a story, in a highly crafted way, using a very creative treatment. It's going to be tricky for her. But just to recap, I'm moving along as quickly as I can. That is Alison. So the storytelling, still, we mustn't forget it. It has to be at the very heart of what we do, wherever we tell a story on whichever platform. Of course, the importance of the technical skills. And then, and I saw some of you sort of nodding in agreement with some of this stuff. Being able to manage yourself. I don't know, they are sort of basic management skills, time management, and then realising and meeting expectations. So there's Alison, and here's Kate. Meet Radio Kate. So Kate's a freelance radio producer who has used Twitter in particularly, I think, to do some really great stuff. She uses Twitter to crowdsource, and that's a term that's come about, I guess, in the last sort of 6 months or so, maybe longer. So it's about using social media to connect with the audience, generate content, but more than that, use people's knowledge, use people's experience, just get help from the audience that's out there. And Kate recently led a project for the BBC World Service called Save Our Sounds, a fantastic idea for a project, appealing to people around the world to record the sounds in the area in which they live or work. And the BBC World Service aimed to build a huge library of all sorts of sounds, maybe some of them disappearing from around the world. So Kate set up a Save Our Sounds Twitter account, started getting a decent following, was starting to send out messages to the followers, just introducing the project, you know, what are the sounds around you, please send them in. And in the end was getting such a decent following that she was able to send very specific requests. One that I remember was, is anybody in Cairo? I can't remember what the sound was, but there is a particular sound we need in Cairo. Please, can you help? And such was the response through Twitter on this project that people that helped, that were able to come to London, were invited to a party at the British Museum where Save Our Sound sort of had a bit of a celebration in terms of what they've done. This is a quote from Kate. I think this quote is great. I know social media isn't traditionally a platform, but I think it's fast becoming one. I know people think that Twitter is just a matter of 140 characters, but used well, it's a very powerful tool, and I've been building some great connections through it. So in terms of skills, well, I'm a radio producer and a journalist, and I've used those skills on air and online to produce content, but I'm also a communicator, and that is a main skill in using social media. It's about the connections, the trust, the engagement with people. I think that section in the end there is particularly relevant in terms of the skills, the talent of somebody using social media independently and for radio TV as well. But just finally, here's a recent appeal from Kate on Twitter. She's doing a project about quantum computing. I have no idea what it is, even though I spoke to her about it. Just look at the way she's phrased that. Kate has great interpersonal skills. She likes people. She knows how to get the best out of people. Again, fundamental skills that I think set you apart and it gives you great success when you're using social media. And you'll be pleased to know that she got lots of positive requests for help from all sorts of people from around the world, including this guy in particular who turned out to be a real expert and a senior editor at a science magazine. So to round up, I say the fifth platform worker, social media. Of course, understanding how Twitter works and the etiquette and all that. And understanding the benefits to how it can make great radio. Yes, it can stand alone and be entertaining and informative, but how does it help us on the other platforms? And finally, as I said, excellent communication and interpersonal skills. Knowing how to phrase a request as she did, knowing who's out there, and thank you very much for your time. I'm on Twitter as well, by the way, if you'd like to follow me. All followers are always welcome. Thank you very much.